Thank you. I'll call this bike meeting to order. Mr. Potts, how is life in Italy? It looks like you've got a great background there.
Actually, France.
Oh, France, I was close enough. It's a hill to climb.
It's southern France.
All right, I'll call this meeting to order, and it looks like we do have a quorum, and I will seek approval of the minutes from the September meeting of 2020. Has everybody had a chance to take a look at them? I'm seeing some heading nods. That's all I'm seeing. And is
I'll make
Joe
a motion.
not on? I can't see Joe.
Yeah, I'm here. I'm on mute. I'm just getting my kids ready for school.
That's fine. That's fine. So I will, hearing no discussion on the minutes, I'll entertain a motion to approve.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Wireless caller, please speak.
Okay, so it was moved by Andy. Do we have a second?
Second.
Joe, seconded by Joe. Is there any further discussion on the minutes? Hearing none, I'll move approval. All those in favor signify by saying aye, please.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, same sign. Minutes approved. The next item on the agenda is the public appearance for non-agenda items. Is there anybody on this call that has a public appearance for a non-agenda item? Yes, Steve.
Steve, you're muted.
Yep. Just wanted to say that I'm here representing Bike Fitchburg, and I'd like to pitch in at a couple of different points. One on the
Hey.
the business about projects for 2021. The business about bicycle registration, and I'm told that the eco counter is going to be under gold status, so I'd like to speak to that. And I'm happy to answer any questions on any of these topics. I'll stay for the whole meeting. That's all for now.
Thank you. Tony, how about you?
Yeah, so like Steve, I'm a member of Bike Fitchburg, and I'm here for the whole meeting or for the duration, mostly as an observer, but definitely a contributor. I know that you'll be taking up one of the topics that Steve mentioned regarding registration, and truly our goal is to coordinate and be in communication, if not Uber communication, with your committee, so that we are not duplicating efforts, but covering our bases as we go for gold. And I think that really covers it. But I will mention that one of the things that we discussed for a bit at our last meeting, our most recent meeting, I want the city to start thinking about, because I've already had discussions with Chief Brecklin, but that is rebooting the Fitchburg Bicycle Patrol. And he will be a guest at our January meeting to talk about what they've done in the past and what he hopes to accomplish as he looks for new members. He's put the word out to his troops, and he has a few left from the prior edition, but we've talked about, you know, everything from raising money to raising awareness and helping to get them back on the roads on bicycles. So that's my 2 cents.
Okay, thank you, Tony. Any other non-agenda items? Okay, hearing none, we'll move into the agenda review. Phil, I assume this is yours?
Yeah, this is, I suppose, probably a part of the agenda that is probably a little bit outdated. I don't know if anybody has anything they'd like to add to the agenda that's not on there already. But we've got a pretty full slate ahead of us already.
Well, hearing none, why don't we go ahead and jump into the agenda, Phil? Take it away.
Sure. So we'll start with projects impacting the bike networks. This is one there's not really many updates from our September meeting. I could go ahead and share my screen really quickly. Here we go. And then get to the right page. So projects impacting the bike network, you should recognize most of these things. Sorry, it just disappeared on my my PDF. That's not great. There we go. All right, that's as big as I can make it. So you should recognize most or all of these things from September. We've got the Mckee Road resurfacing and Badger State Trail. Mckee continues, I believe. There's still some work going on between Seminole and Marketplace. I actually haven't been down to Fitchburg in a week or two, but I believe that's still going on. As we talked about in September, the Badger State Trail is now open. The bridge that you see behind my head on the screen is the new Badger State Trail bridge going over Mckee Road that opened September 30th, the day after our last bike committee meeting. So hopefully if you've been out on your bike, you've had a chance to ride over that trail, over that bridge. Fish Hatchery Road, phase 1, as far as I'm aware, is complete. I've driven down there. It looks like the first phase, the kind of north half of the project is finished. Next year is when phase 2 of Fish Hatchery is going to be conducted. You can see that from the map here. Oh boy. So we'll be getting down just south of Mckee Road next year. But as of right now, if you've been out there again, if you've looked over on the west side of Fish Hatchery, hopefully you've noticed there is that new multi-use trail. It's actually striped for bi-directional travel. But that trail is complete to the extent that Fish Hatch has been updated and will be continued all the way down to Mckee Road next year. Steve, did you have something to add in there?
Yeah, I had a comment and a question.
Sure.
I'm very happy to see that they are striping the crosswalks with elephant tracks instead of regular stripes along the bikeway. So that's terrific. And I have a question. Why is the new street near UW Credit Union have a different name than Pike Drive?
That's a good question. I'm not sure about that.
It's I have a photo of the street sign, but I think it begins with O. And the only thing I could think of is that the city may have given up on getting Pike Drive through the church property in the long term.
Second, checking it
Steve,
out.
I'm on CETA, and I know that church property's not been given up on. They just don't have anybody that continues to walk forward. Everything that they get so far and it stops. So it is. We heard at our last CETA meeting a month or two ago from Mike that they were still talking to people, but it's not a done deal. I would suggest you ask Bill Balke if I don't know if he's not on this call, but Balke may be able to answer that question about the road.
All right, thank you.
I can ask Bill about that one, get some follow up, and let you know, Steve. All right.
That's all I
have. Yeah. So okay. So Fish Hatch continues. And here's our Badger State Trail. Capital City Trail. I believe, is this completed to the roundabout now? I think I saw online that was done.
It is.
I wrote it a week ago, and it was, you could get through it. I think it's completed.
Great. How'd it ride?
It's wonderful.
Fine, just like the bridge across PD.
Great.
The entire thing's been the entire thing's been raised up a few feet, so that should take care of the flooding problems.
Fantastic. And I know that it is on their it's on their radar to look at some of the flooding issues through kind of this Jenny and Kyle Preserve area next year. But next year, the Cap City Trail reconstruction from Dane County will be completed. Phase 4 is going to be from the roundabout over to Fitchburg Road. Go ahead.
The other good thing on this is the Cap City Trail. They've given us signs down Glacier Parkway, which has taken care of. And Andy and I have talked about this offline. It's taken care of people getting lost as they've come across the bridge or gone the other way. So
thanks
the guy from Dane County is very responsive.
Yeah, thanks for pushing on that, Mark. That's nice to get those signs
The
in there.
permanent signs will be done when the road's done.
Okay, great.
Hey guys, since we're talking about trails, and I hate to take you back a step, but you were talking first about Badger. We do have those 4 brown funny signs on the Badger Trail still, where it used to be crossing Mckee as you're heading southbound. I know you've all seen them. I believe they belong to the city. It basically says prolong your days, look both ways is the gist of the message. And if those are indeed the cities, I was thinking maybe we could move those down to the Wayland Road crossing or another, deserving road crossing. I don't know who ever paid for those. They're brown and there's 4 of them. If you guys know what I'm talking about, they're on the west side, southbound, just before you get to Mckee on the Badger Trail.
The Burma Shave signs.
Exactly. They're about, 100 feet apart, each one of them.
Mark? Mark,
Yes.
can I speak to that? All the signage on the Badger belongs to DNR. So they have been updating things. They had a crossing where there is now stormwater facility on each side and the new, so they removed that crossing sign. So I know that they have been proactively working on the signage along the Badger south of Mckee. So they should be, that is the paved part of the Badger in Fitchburg is handled by the DNR office in Mount Horeb, which also takes care of the Military Ridge. The unpaved part of the Badger to the south is handled by the DNR Monroe office.
So, Phil, you can reach out to them, or I'm happy to reach out to them, either one.
Yep, I can do that. I'll add it to throw an action item in there for myself. So Steve, you said that'd be the Mount Horeb office. Thanks.
Yeah, I believe you said Mount Horeb for the paved section that's actually in Fitchburg, and
Yep.
the Monroe office south. It'd probably be good to have contacts there. I wouldn't mind finding out who those folks are too. We can share that with Bike Fitchburg as well.
Yep, I'll see what I can uncover there.
Actually, if you don't have a contact in that office, then contact Dana Quam White, who is the DNR Trail Supervisor, and she will give you that contact. And I have her contact information.
Awesome.
If you need it.
I'll let you know if I need it. All right. So yeah, Cap City Trail is getting pretty close to being done. And then finally here we've got this Mad Sewer, the Madison Metro Sewerage District, 9 Springs Valley Interceptor and improvements. So this one is just about to begin. I received an email yesterday from Rachel File with MMSD. Just gonna kind of read some sections of her email. I think that's gonna be easier than me trying to paraphrase. So the Military Ridge and Cannonball Path detours are planned to start next Monday, December 7th. Portions of these paths, including the Velo Underground roundabout, will be closed during the project. There is a detour map that has been posted on the MMSD website. That's also one that I can send out to the bike committee after this meeting, and I'll post on the city's website as well. The Madison Metro Sewerage District is replacing the existing interceptor along the Military Ridge Trail and Cannonball Path between Mckee Road and Duns Marsh. This project, known as the 9 Springs Valley Interceptor Improvements Mckee Road to Duns Marsh project, will protect public health by replacing deteriorated infrastructure and increase capacity to serve growing communities. Work is anticipated to begin December 7th, 2020 and be complete December 2021. Next week, for both northern and southern portions, they anticipate some clearing and grubbing, removing select shrubs and trees, erosion control being installed, and the asphalt being pulverized. The contractor anticipates starting on the northern portion of the project with pipe. That would be the western portion of Duns Marsh, and working their way back southwest along the trail towards Discovery Drive with pipe installation. So that's the latest update I've got on this 9 Springs Interceptor project. And yeah, it's going to be a pretty significant set of detours over the coming months.
If I
Yep,
may
Steve?
add, I've been in contact with her regarding the detour map, and I can tell you from visiting the area that the detour maps are actually posted at the areas where people will encounter the outages later, or at the point before they face those outages when they can take a detour. So they're Mckee at the Military Ridge Path Bridge, and Cannonball at Seminole, and so on. They have signage up that contains the entire detour map.
So here's what that detour map is going to look like. This is what's linked on the MMSD website. So coming from the roundabout, kind of detouring along Cap City Trail, the Badger State Trail, and then Mckee Road. So kind of a little bit of reverse of the detour we just had going along Military Ridge when the Badger State Trail was closed. The nice thing with this one, it first of all, it doesn't require those hilly routes down through Marketplace that we kind of had to deal with. But it's really, it's a little extra mileage, but it's relatively minimal interference in terms of routes east, west, north, south. So you should be able to generally get where you need to go. The biggest headache I can think of is if you're coming, if you're kind of coming out of the Allied Drive area here, this connector from Chalet Gardens Court. So that one that comes over to the roundabout, if the whole roundabout is closed, then cyclists coming from that neighborhood are going to have to take this hilly trail up to the Southwest Commuter Path down to the Badger State Trail. So it's a little extra elevation gain for them. But it doesn't look like this is going to result in anyone being unable to get where they're going, which is nice. So yeah, I'll make sure to post that on the city's website as well. It's nice to know that they've already put it on the trail where the detours are going to need to take place. And I don't know. So the construction is going to continue through December of 2021, but the whole phasing, I think, has still not been fully scheduled out yet. So I'm not sure. I don't believe these sections of the trail are going to be closed that entire time. It'll be chunks here and there. And so as I learn more, I'll make sure to update the committee and keep the city's website updated. And then the project slated for 2021, I don't have any. Oh, I really wish I could zoom in on that. I don't have any updates from the September meeting. There are no changes on here, with the exception of got one email back from Bill. So unfortunately, he was unable to join us today. But I asked him a couple questions after the last meeting. So Angie, I know you had talked about concerns with the rework on the Syene Road next year, and wanted to make sure that, you know, if there's some way to ensure that we can get at the very least some wider shoulders for cyclists on there. I know that with some projects we've kind of had some concerns with, are we going to be able to are we going to be able to acquire enough land that we can widen the roads enough for cyclists? And Bill said he doesn't foresee any issues with needing additional land for the proposed roadway section. He said, since we're converting a rural section to an urban section, the curb and stormwater reduces the area needed for drainage, allowing the conversion to bike lanes and sidewalks where needed. So there's one section that'll need some deliberation between Central Park Place and Argus. That's kind of, I think that's up near the fire station. The residents would like to add a parking lane in that section. That would, of course, impact what happens with the bike lane. But it does look like he's planning to have bikeability throughout that whole Syene rework next year. Steve? Yeah, I think that your committee should review the design. For example, is Argus the northern street in Uptown Crossing, where there's you can turn right out but no left in and so on? The side path that runs
north from the McCoy house there needs to be connected to the street and to the bike lane. And there's other details of the design that a person who bikes needs to review. I also wanted to point out one thing that's incorrect on the slide that is in the packet.
Sure.
It says, as the road cannot be widened without acquiring property, and current statutes disallow governments purchasing private lands for the use of bike infrastructure. That's incorrect. I'm on the Bike Fed lobby committee, and eminent domain is a huge issue for us. We're trying to get the prohibition of condemnation of land for bike and ped projects overturned, repealed. But there is no prohibition to add land for bike and ped projects. The prohibition is to use eminent domain for it. So if you're working with a willing seller, it's no problem. So,
and that is an important distinction. Thanks. That was a little.
We should be going after that land. For example, we needed land along Fish Hatchery Road for the path where the retaining walls are at the Pines. And as long as we have a willing seller, we can buy that land.
I wanted to add to that. I'm concerned about some of the projects that I see happening. You know, Wayland Road was really not done safely. Irish Lane's not been done safely. I would like for us to be able to see what's actually happening, as opposed to, you know, a year ago, Bill had said, well, Irish Lane's gonna have shoulders on it, paved shoulders, and it clearly doesn't. And it clearly could if it had been done properly. So I guess I'm not gonna believe that they're gonna really do it the way it's best for people, not just bikers, unless we actually see that. One of the things that I feel is really important to understand is that paved shoulders benefit far more than bikers. They benefit the big trucks, they benefit people walking, they benefit cars, you know, they benefit the city of Fitchburg, because if there's a truck on the side of the road and they're partway into the gravel, they're chewing up the whole side of the road. So if we did it in such a way that we had paved shoulders, the actual sides of the roads aren't gonna be broken down to the extent that they have been. The other thing that I think that they need to seriously think about is the signage that they put on roads. Share the road signs do absolutely nothing. It's a waste of a sign and a pole. I mean, if they were to, I'm not sure exactly what the best choice is. Maybe it's a merging or something. But share the road signs are ignored. They aren't really, they don't do what we wanted them to do back when they were originally put in. So I guess I would like to have the opportunity to take a look at some of these things, because I feel like everywhere I go, I have better biking conditions than I do in Fitchburg.
So Phil, let's circle back with Bill Balke. I think Angie has some valid points that we need to share. I mean, we've been saying this as a committee, Phil, since before you joined the group. Goes back to when Tony Hartman was chair. So I think, hold on, Steve, wait a second. I think let's circle back with him, share these concerns. And at the same point in time, we had those issues from last time we haven't gotten to yet. But this is very important for safety in our city. And I think that's one of the things this committee's got to lead the charge for.
And I think that'll be easier. I hope it'll be easier as we move from, we'll discuss that a bit when we get into scheduling meetings for next year, but I'm hoping going forward, we're going to have an easier time having a little bit of give and take with Bill and the engineering team.
I'm not trying to be adversarial. I just want them to give us a chance and for us to be able to help them. I don't like yelling. I don't like being difficult, but I do want them to understand what I think is probably important to everybody.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And Steve, you want to go really quickly, and then I do want to move on with the agenda because we're a third of the way into our time and got a lot to cover.
Has outlawed the share the road signs. The sign to use instead is bikes may use full lane. And with regard to the project review, my opinion as to what you should push for is that Public Works should present the 60% design to the bicycle committee at a special meeting for every project, every significant project. And then that's the point where you say, look, you've got a bike path that ends at a sidewalk and where it's not legal to ride on the sidewalk, or there's no curb cut planned here, or you've got a solid line where there should be a dash line on the bike lane for bus stop. So those are the kinds of things that people that bike all the time are going to see.
Some of the other things to consider too are basically, let's not end the paved shoulder at a driveway with a street coming out on the other side and going up a hill. You know, some of those kinds of things, I think we could assist them more than, I don't want them to feel like we're being difficult. I'd like to help.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it's definitely, I don't think this is a question of too many cooks in the kitchen per se. I think that, you know, to kind of to Steve's point, scheduling special meetings, the timeline for when these projects are planned out and determined doesn't necessarily or hasn't historically aligned with the timing of when the bike committee meets. I don't know that scheduling a special meeting for the bike committee every time there's a project under consideration is the most logical option, but I think something that gets a little bit more communication back and forth would be good. And I want to talk with Bill about that. I know he's been had even more work to do than normal since being named Public Works Director, and they still have not backfilled the transportation engineer position. And so Bill's kind of running double duty there. But definitely want to get that figured out, you know, of course, as soon as possible. Anything else on the construction project topics? Nope. All right. And it looks like I put that set of slides in our packet twice, so sorry about that for the extra reading in there. So the next item, bicycling related events in and around Fitchburg. I wasn't able to find any. I don't know if there's, sorry, suddenly I'm looking very dark here. Let's see if I can change my light balance. I didn't see any upcoming cycling events. I don't know if anyone has anything, but as far as I'm aware, there's nothing coming up in these winter months.
I think the bike feds, Santa Rampage was more to be encouraged as a do on your own kind of thing, but feel free to make a contribution kind of thing.
Yeah.
Would have been a couple weeks from now.
The Santa Cycle Rampage.
Yeah.
It's a week from this weekend in Milwaukee and 2 weeks in Madison, and it's virtual, and there is a suggested route on the Milwaukee one, and I've yet to get the Madison area route to the bike fed.
Okay. Yeah, that'll be good to see. I had seen the Milwaukee one in here, but didn't know that there was going to be a Madison one as well. So that'll be.
Those of us who participated in it got an email from the bike fed about it.
Okay.
Phil, this is Tony. Just wanted to mention that Bikes Fitchburg had a discussion on this topic, and obviously there's not much on anybody's calendar right now, but in the interest of our mission to promote safety and work on, you know, some of the aspects of the Going for Gold, we discussed Matt Jones, who is our certified instructor, and Steve can speak to this, but putting on a virtual winter biking seminar, call it workshop, similar to what we've done at Bike Fitchburg in the past. And it probably won't happen as early as January, but it could be midwinter, like a February date. So unfortunately, I don't have a date yet, but I guess just a heads up that hopefully that's coming and we'll get something on the calendar for the next 90 days.
Great.
Yeah, and I don't know of any events going on in Fitchburg per se, but I know that some of the fat bike events, the huge JASS, they're, I think, holding their events with distancing, and there are some things going on around the state.
Well, I know of two events that are fat bike related. If you guys want to put those on the calendar, one is the Berkey Fat Bike up in Hayward, which is 2 weeks after the Berkey, so that's early March. There's also one in the UP that's similar. It's at the Nokemanon event. And just an FYI, they're having both of those big marathons, the Birkebeiner being much larger, but they're spreading them out over 3 to 5 days. The Birkebeiner is going to run 5 different races to spread people out and in 2 different disciplines. So it's quite elaborate. But what they've done, they figured out starting in September with the trail marathon race, where people drive up to pick up their packets. It's pretty thoughtful. And of course, to Angie's point, you know, the social distancing is the primary focus, but you know, people are still able to get out on trails and do these events. And the fat bike portions of these winter events that are, you know, traditionally ski races have gotten bigger and bigger and bigger. So again, the dates for the Nokemanon in Marquette, Michigan, you know, straight north of Green Bay, there is the last full weekend in January. And the Birkebeiner race is 2 weeks after, and I believe the Birkebeiner this year is the 24th through the 28th. So whatever 2 weeks is from that weekend would be the Birkebeiner Fat Bike race. And those events are on, and they will be socially distanced, and you can go to their websites and look at them.
It's kind of fun. The ski races are being, some of the SAG support is being done on fat bikes, which is fun.
That is cool. Didn't know that.
Yep. I've done it, so both skiing and fat.
All right, move on to item 5C, scheduling bike committee meetings for 2021. So Mark chatted with Pat Marsh back in September when that Badger State Trail Bridge was opening up, and worked out an agreement for the bike committee to move from 4 meetings to 6 meetings next year. So instead of quarterly, we're going to be able to meet every other month. We currently don't have any meetings on the calendar, so we need to do that as soon as possible, especially if we decide we want to start in January, then we'll need to get that scheduled ASAP. And I think it would be nice just for general public awareness, just to make it easier on committee members, if we have something a little bit more of a regular thing, you know, second Tuesday of every month or of every other month type of an idea, instead of doing a survey for you all to fill out every time we need to have a meeting. So with that in mind, the one thing to keep in mind is that, let me pull up the council chambers meetings. So the 2nd and 4th Tuesday, just checking a couple calendars to make sure I've got this right here. The 2nd and 4th Tuesday of every month typically are reserved for department head meetings. So if we're going to stick with Tuesday mornings, and it seems like that works pretty well for everybody, then we would need to look at 1st and 3rd Tuesdays of the month to avoid overlapping with those department head meetings. And the issue there is just that they start at 9 a.m. And once we get back to a point where we can meet in City Hall again, and we're meeting back in the Genie Ceiling room in 204, they'd begin at 9 a.m. in that room. So I'd prefer to avoid that 2nd and 4th Tuesday, just because it would kind of always force us out 5 minutes early.
Is there a way that we could look at the timing to make sure that we are meeting prior to when the budget is due and we can make suggestions?
Well, I would also add, go ahead, Phil.
Nope, sorry, go ahead, Mark.
I would also echo what Angie said, and I also think that we need to put the previous discussion, which we're not gonna rehash, the bike projects into some type of thing where it goes into budget. But if we're gonna get into this bike index and echo counter, we're gonna have to talk to the city about some help. Whether they're all the help, I don't know yet, but we're this is an important committee, and we need some help from the people above us. Joe, you're on the phone here, and I think as an alder, you need to know that we're gonna need some nice beard.
Thank you.
I haven't seen you for a while.
My winter beard.
Yeah, we're gonna need some support. I mean, again, I think like Fitchburg, what they're doing, they're getting their act together on some of these things, and we need to help them. We need to help move this. And I think we have an engaged alder. We got you engaged. We need to get our other colleagues engaged in the city. And it is going to take a little bit of capital to move this forward, particularly with the investments being made in infrastructure here. So my 2 cents, I would set this, and I would tie it to what Angie commented on.
I would say that if you, hello? You all there?
You're still there.
I would say that if you want, like if there is some need for, like a capital improvement plan item, that we also think about the way that our agendas are structured leading up to the capital improvement process next year as well. So, if we've got 6 meetings, let's just think about kind of what the committee wants and, what our constituents want. And then I can sort of think about if either myself or another alder need to think about CIP amendments.
I don't want to tell people what to do, but I would think that thinking of the multi-use aspects of roads when we're looking to redo roads would be an automatic thing that should be done.
Yeah, Steve.
Yeah, as a policy item at the council level, it would be important, I believe, for Fitchburg to pass a complete streets ordinance. And that would mandate that all projects be reviewed for all modes. Motor vehicle, bike, pedestrian, transit users, and those with different abilities.
I think the way to start all this.
Oh, Mark, you muted.
I think the way to start this is we move to 2021 and start having regular meetings. Let's take a look at our priorities. And then I think we can tie it all together by dates. Mm-hmm. We can give it to our alder rep and Joe, and I don't have any issue with it being shared with the alders. Yeah. I mean, one of the alders, another one of his colleagues lives by me, and she asks me all the time when I see her out walking, what are we doing? And I think it's very important we can get the alders support if we give them an idea of what we're doing. And I just think we need to move this to the next level, personally.
Hey, Joe. And this is all departing a little bit from figuring out a specific schedule for 2021. But as long as we're on this topic, I know that some committees have occasionally presented to the committee of the whole to kind of talk about what they've been up to and what their priorities are for the upcoming months. Do you think that's something that we could do, get bike committee on the schedule for COW?
Yeah, absolutely. I can have Julia to do that. She's the council president. So if just because I'm driving right now, otherwise I'd write this down. If you could send me an email just to remind me, I'll check with her on sort of what her schedule is looking like and where we can fit in.
Yeah, in the spirit of disclosure,
is there a certain month that's appropriate for updates?
Well, Joe, I'm going to try to answer that as the chair. I think we need to update our priorities for next year, because mainly this year we've been focused on construction and as well as the goal journey. But I think we need to build these other things in. And Julia was on the committee before you. And again, I had that talk with her about sharing with the council at some time down the road. And we just never got there. So I think Phil can tell us when that all ties in.
I would think it would make the most sense to try to present to COW at some point during the summer. I think if we could do it after Bike Month in May, there'd be a little bit of momentum on bike related things, and we could talk about some very recent successes. But really, just getting on the calendar at any point would be great.
Okay.
Mark?
Steve?
Yeah, I would
Go ahead, Steve.
recommend that you go sooner in the spring. I think that April or May would time it around the time of the Bike Month proclamation, and it would tee up the CIP, which staff will be starting in June.
Right, that's a good point. Yep.
And you really want to be laying out your vision for how the CIP should be bent toward all road users and mobility for everyone, and away from car centrism, which is.
So Steve, I think that makes sense. Joe, I think if Phil and you and Joe can get back together and figure out that time, I think that'd be good to move this forward. Secondly, I'm going to pull my watch the meeting time clock here. We got some very important other items to go through. So Phil, why don't you just give us a date and times, and let's put them on the calendars. We got Scott on the phone running this, and when we get back together in person, we'll do so. But go ahead and set them up for next year, and then folks can know.
Does anyone have any concerns with, I mean, essentially what I'm going to do is it's an every other month if we're doing 6 meetings. So it's either every odd month or every even month. I think I'd be likely to go with the first Tuesday rather than the third, just because the third, whether it's November or December, we're kind of getting into Thanksgiving, Christmas concerns. But I just kind of want to check and see the schedule. But if anybody has any concerns with those, let me know now, or even send me an email in the next day or two. If we do, yeah, we'll see. I probably don't want to do the first Tuesday in January.
Due to annual holidays, if you pick the first Tuesday, you should take the even months. If you take the third Tuesday, you should take the odd months. And I just want to throw in, since the focus is on me, that Bike Fitchburg would like to present at the COW along with you. And we can lay out some of those council questions about what's a bicycle committee and what's Bike Fitchburg and how are they different.
Okay, keep moving.
All right. Agenda item 5D, update from the working group on bicycle friendly community gold status. So this one is a little bit more, free form. I think that it's not, it wasn't laid out particularly specifically in the packet, but there are just several things that we've continued looking at in terms of trying to get Fitchburg to gold status as a bike friendly community. Some of the things that have gotten a lot of attention from us over the previous months that have been identified as top priorities for moving the community to gold. One was increasing ridership, or demonstrating that we do have higher ridership than what came through. That's one that we're looking at in terms of increasing our data tracking and getting some looking into the possibility of some bike counters around Fitchburg, in terms of better engaging the business community and making sure that our infrastructure is where we need it to be. Mark and I worked with Angela Kinderman to send out a survey to the Chamber of Commerce and get some response from business owners on that. Those are the two biggest things that I think have gotten a little bit of movement in the past few months. Mark, am I missing anything else that?
I think it's very important we get into the registration discussion and ridership tracking.
Right, thank you.
As I participated in the Bike Fitchburg meeting a couple weeks ago, and I think Tony mentioned it, Matthew Jones has offered to do an education offering, as well as the person in Madison, his name's interesting enough, John Ryder, has offered to do something for us once we figure out and get into the spring. And I think those are something we take them up on those. And that's one of the things we wanted Bike Fitchburg to take the leadership role on. And I think they've taken the bit and are going to run with it, particularly with Matthew volunteering to do something as well. So that's important. But I do think we need to get into this whole discussion of counting, because I still see it being our biggest deficiency. I talked to Angela, the lady Amelia at Bike Fed. She goes, "That's the biggest thing, is your counts aren't high enough. Those other things look like things you can deal with, and I think we can." So that's where I made the comment to Joe that I think we're going to have to figure out where some money comes from, because unless we're going to stand out there and count 24/7, personally. Hold on, Steve. Hold on. Just wait. So I think we need to, let's move into the echo counter discussion.
Sure.
I gave you guys a packet, and I think you can take it from there, Phil, first. So
Oh, you're muted there, Mark. All right.
Go ahead, Phil, and then Steve.
Yep. All right. So basically the high level of this is we'd like to improve our ridership count, as Mark mentioned. The only thing that we've really done in the past for measuring ridership, and sorry, I'm trying to bring up the, I don't know why this PDF got put in the packet like 4 different times, but I'm kind of trying to move past it and find the overview that I placed in there. It doesn't look like it got included, unfortunately. The only thing that Fitchburg has really done in the past to measure ridership ourselves has been to do manual counts. We usually do that during Bike to Work week. And it's accurate, but it's just one snapshot in time. It doesn't really get a sense of what ridership is like at any other time of day, on any other different day. And it's only measuring specific locations, usually over by the bike roundabout. So it's a very limited method of measuring our data. As we've talked about before, for the bike-friendly community application, what the League of American Bicyclists has used is the American Community Survey that's connected to the census that comes out every few years, and the ACS reports self-reported bike commuting to work. So if anyone who is contacted for the ACS responds that they commute to work regularly by bike, they're included there. That's how we got the 0.75% ridership figure for Fitchburg with this last iteration. Now, the potential concerns with that are, what if somebody's biking recreationally on a regular basis, but they're not commuting because they've got a 20-minute or a 20-mile drive and they're not comfortable biking that far. They're still a regular cyclist, but they're not captured in the data. What if somebody bikes to work 2 days a week but not 5? Maybe they report that they commute by car. Things like that. Certainly for any of us who gets out on our bikes and sees the number of people out on the trails, it feels like more than 1% of Fitchburg is biking regularly. But we need to know that that's actually true. And in order to have any solid sense of that, we need a better count. So what we've looked at, Mark's put a good amount of time into talking to EcoCounter. That's the company that has, if you've ever biked over in the Southwest commuter path by Camp Randall, if you've biked over by Monona Terrace, you've seen some of the visual counter displays that are up by the trail, letting you know how many people have biked by that day. Those are sold by EcoCounter. So there are a number of different options that are available. I can do a quick screen share here because this apparently didn't make it into the packet. Yeah, let's do this. So with EcoCounter, there are a couple of different options they have available. The more expensive ones in kind of the $20,000 to $30,000 range. So you're paying for data tracking, you're paying for access to kind of their data storage. I believe you're paying for technical support, and then also the physical equipment itself, whether it's a camera over on the side that's sensing bikes coming through, or if it's a plate in the ground or something like that. The less expensive ones are more like $3,000 or $4,000. And that'll be more of just a pole mounted sensor or a tube across the trail that's sensing pressure. So the nice thing about the more expensive ones here is that because it's such a nice visual display that kind of helps to promote cycling, and you know, I think that it's a very appealing thing for people out on the trails to see, and just I think that helps. It maybe is just a cosmetic thing, but that cosmetic thing can help to give a little bit better sense of, oh, this is a community that really takes cycling seriously. But that is a pretty high cost for a single counter, and so that's something we'd have to keep in mind. But Mark did get these estimates from EcoCounter, and we have that. We have that communication channel open now, so we're going to see if we can get the working group to get another call with them in the near future, and try to figure out what kind of option that they have we think might work for Fitchburg, and start thinking about what the total cost might be to Fitchburg to use EcoCounter for data tracking. The other one that I found was called TrafX. This is, I believe, the company that Dane County Parks is working through. The counter that we have on the Cap City Trail over by the roundabout that Dane County operates, and I've reported data at a couple bike committee meetings from that counter. I believe that is from TrafX. I was trying to confirm that with Dane County Parks in the past week, and my contact there is out on paternity leave right now. So unfortunately, I couldn't confirm that for sure, and I couldn't get the latest iteration of data updates. But this is a much less expensive piece of equipment. You can see down here, 3 counters plus everything that comes along with it, the sensors, the data support, the training, is around $2,000, and then additional counters would be $500 each. Now, the drawback with the TrafX counters is it's just a motion sensor, essentially. So it tracks bikes, it tracks skateboarders, pedestrians, people walking their dogs, and it doesn't track directional travel, where some of the EcoCounter options can sense bi-directional travel, so you know which direction people are going, and that's sort of useful for getting a sense not just of total ridership, but also direction of, you know, if you're looking at numbers tracked during the morning and afternoon commute, you maybe have a sense of not just how many people are coming by, but which direction they're going. Which can be useful for various planning purposes. My sense is if we wanted just a pure utilitarian, let's get a count of our ridership data, the less expensive options are more than sufficient. You know, directional travel doesn't matter much at that point. The visual display for passersby isn't a huge deal. The options that are more like $2,000 to $3,000 to $4,000, whether it's TrafX or the cheaper EcoCounter options, those are going to get us data, and that's far beyond what we have right now. It would get us data that we could submit to the Bike League as at the very least an addendum to what they have right now. If we start getting into the more expensive options, well, now they're providing us with greater utility and we can do more things with it, but we're also probably looking into needing to, I'm guessing the city doesn't have this kind of money right now, so we might be looking into grants or something else along those lines.
Before
I have a
Steve talks,
question.
I'm gonna send, oh, go ahead, Joe.
So the thing I've always thought about with bike counters as I ride by them is there a need for like multiple ones in different parts of a given city? Because I always see one and I'm like, okay, that's good for telling me how many people pass, you know, the stadium, but that doesn't tell me how many people ride overall. It just tells me about this point. Is there like recommendations that there be more than one in different spots?
Yeah, I think I think you identified a big thing that we'd have to consider with this. If we really want to get a sense of ridership in Fitchburg, we should be tracking several different areas. We have people riding more than just around the roundabout. You know, certainly that's going to be the highest concentration of cyclists. But if you put one on, put one on the Badger State Trail, put one over on the Cannonball up closer to Post Road, and if you stick one eventually on Mckee Road or Fish Hatch, where we're going to have those multi-use trails, that's going to give you a better sense. Now, you might be double counting a few people occasionally, but it is going to give you a better sense overall of the data picture. I think if you only track one trail, I don't think it's giving you a great sense of city ridership overall. But I don't know if Mark or Steve, if you've come across any sort of best practices on that front.
Go ahead, Steve, and I got something to add.
Okay, so having an eco counter at the roundabout has long been a desire of me personally and Bike Fitchburg, and that's why we do our bike counts there twice a year, the volunteer bike counts that we've been doing for at least 5 years. I have 3 counter projects in mind, and addressing first of all the idea about around the state. If you are around the city, if you go to the Madison Eco Counter webpage, you will see both the visible eco counters, the totem poles that are in the city at Camp Randall and at North Shore at the Cap City. But there are many more sensors around the city, and all of them are displayed at that webpage. And what you have is the modeling is that by counting around the city, you can count trips and you can put a floor and say, well, I'm only counting at these places, and I know that there are more trips around the city, so we're pushing the floor up as we can count more of the bicycle trips. So I have 3 counter projects in mind. One of them is at the roundabout. The estimate that Mark received is for basically 4 counters on the roundabout that don't even capture the main movement, which is between the Southwest Path and the Military Ridge by the Epic commuters. So if you went up to 6 counters and put them on all the trails in, and they would not have to be bi-directional, you would count people on the way into the roundabout and again on the way out. So I would propose there 6 counters and 1 display. The other main place that we've counted, and I know Mark has personally counted this one, is at the Cap City, Mckee, and Fish Hatchery intersection at the Green Bridge. There you would need 7 counters because you've got Fish Hatchery north and south, the new bike trail, well, it's old in that area, north and south, Mckee to the west, and the Cap City east and west. So there's 7 counters and 1 display needed there. And those would count the long distance commuters, not the people who are going from Quarry Hill to the library, but people who are going long distances and coming through the main choke points of our city. The third project would be border counting, where we're basically counting people coming and leaving the city, because most recreational and long distance commuters are going more than the 6 miles distance that our city is square. So you could put as few as 6 or 8 counters at the borders. I would not put displays. And you could put as many as 16 to get the vast bulk of the traffic. These are places like Mckee at the west border, County B at the east border, Rimrock and Fish Hatchery and the Cannonball and the Badger on the north border, and so on. So I can give you a list of those. As far as paying for it, both the roundabout and the Mckee Fish Hatchery intersection share a characteristic, which is that they're both to be completely torn down and reconstructed in the next year. And I checked with Rachel at the Mad Sewer, And that project is $4.6 million. And we know that the total fish hatchery project is more like $20 to $25 million. So now we're getting a $75,000 counting project becomes a rounding error. So in addition to putting a change order into the plans for those two projects, we also have to fund it. And I would propose that we could apply for a Nelson Knowles stewardship grant to fund these projects. That would be a 50% local and 50% state match. And we could put the 50% local match could possibly be met by Mad Sewer matching the state money for the roundabout, and for the fish hatchery Mckee intersection, the local match could be a change order on our road project. So those are the things that I'm working on right now, trying to get firm estimates and learning more about the Nelson Knowles Stewardship Grant Program. Andy tells me that if a nonprofit like Bike Fitchburg goes for the grant program, that it scores better than if the city were to go for it, because the state figures the city has its own money. So just for a point of reference, the new side path running down Lacey Road between the community center and Cyene Road was funded in part by Nelson Knowles. And there's a sign at Micah acknowledging that. So I think that even though $75,000 or $100,000 for a counter project seems like a lot of money, in the scheme of these big construction projects, it is not. And I think that we should go for it. With respect to the border counters, I think that that would be a future CIP type project that the city could undertake, and we could use the less expensive counters. Displays are not needed. They would not need to be linked to the cellular network and uploaded automatically. Someone could, a volunteer could run around with a smartphone and download the data monthly from Bluetooth. So now we're talking $2,000 to $3,000 per counter. Some of them are a little tricky because where there's no bike lanes, like Whalen at Fitchburg Road, now you don't really, you have to separate bikes from motor vehicles, and that's problematical. So we need to solve some bike lane problems or paved shoulder problems at the same time. But that's what I wanted to present, and I'd be happy to take any questions on what Bike Fitchburg has in mind.
Go ahead, Phil.
Steve, would you mind sending those estimates over to me? I'd just be really curious to look at those high-level numbers. That's an impressive amount of work you've put into this.
Okay.
In addition, Phil, I would suggest, and you put it in the minutes, in the notes, is that we have a conference call with Marianne Matheny, I think it's her name, from Echo Counter, because she did tell me that what she had sent was just nothing more than a proposal. She didn't know our area, which, as Steve has said, is different than what she just thrown at us. But she said there are different options in more than just what's sitting at John Nolan and Camp Randall. So I think, hold on, Steve, let me finish, please.
I'm just letting you know. I'm trying to get in the queue.
So at any rate, I think that's what our, while Steve gets that info to you, Phil, that's our next step. We schedule a call with her.
Yeah, I just wanted to add that we had talked to Eco Counter two years ago and gotten the estimate for the roundabout, and that person was Olivia White, and I don't know if she's still there. The estimates that I will send to Phil are constructive estimates with maps, and they'll be based on the prices that are in the comparison document that's in the packet 3 times, and not as part of a design that Eco Counter staff has done.
Well, that's what that packet I sent you, Steve, was what Marion sent me. So
right.
I understand it's got 90 pages, but Phil, do you want to send that to our group, our committee?
It's in the packet.
Oh, it's in the packet. Okay.
3 times.
Hey, yeah. Mark, I've had my hand up since Westfield. I'm getting tired of holding my hand up. This is Tony.
Hi, Tony.
Hey, I have three things. I'll make it quick. One, you guys should invite the mayor to your next meeting, because instead of having to write amendments, why not just have him include some of these? He's as bike friendly as any mayor since Steve, and I think that's probably a good direction. Two, I was trying to help Joe out. If nobody tells on me, I texted Julia. She says you guys can get on the calendar as early as March, which is, I believe, the 24th is the fourth Wednesday. I know that's a little earlier than you guys were talking, but I would jump on that if it's possible. And then finally, you guys haven't been talking very much about roadways, even though there was some mention of it. Angie certainly talked about it. You guys need to look at modern technology. I mean, my goodness, if you look at Strava heat maps, even the free information, there are roadways through Fitchburg that are white hot. So we have people all over Fitchburg riding, not just down the bike path or the multi-use paths. And I think that for a lot less than 75 grand, you can get some extremely valuable, you might even to this point, might even be able to get bi-directional information, although I'm not sure how sensitive it is. They have all that digital information that people who use their apps create, so you can get exact numbers too. And if not Strava by itself, add in some of the other digital media. But I think you guys would be remiss if you just went through all the physical counting, whether by machine or in person. So those are my three items.
All right.
Thanks, Tony. Yeah, that's good to keep in mind. I think that was definitely something I was thinking about, that, all of these getting counters on all these trails, I think would be really valuable. I think most of the places that, as you mentioned, I'm looking at this heat map right now, Tony. Most of the places you mentioned as being white hot are these major city, county, state trails. But another thing is that this is going to capture the people that are more often riding longer distances. It still doesn't necessarily capture people who are doing riding within the city, and maybe there are going to be some limitations. We obviously can't get every trail. We can't get every residential road, and so we're never going to get 100% accurate data. But one thing I want to make sure that we are at least thinking about is, as we talk about bike network improvements, and as we talk about capturing who is riding, that we're getting a comprehensive picture of who's riding in the city. And this is just a blind spot that I know I personally have. I am a white male middle class guy. I have pretty much always been that, and it's a pretty large proportion of who rides is white middle class, upper class, especially men. But generally, that's who is reached out to in terms of cycling. I know Joe connected me with Baltazar. Oh gosh, I'm going to forget his last name. Deanda, thank you. Who's with the Latino Academy for Workforce Development. He's previously worked with the Bike Fed, and we chatted a little bit. We didn't really get into any big weighty discussions, but just kind of got an initial conversation, get to know each other. He's a huge cycling advocate, and also works with, I think, a segment of the community of Fitchburg in the Madison area that doesn't necessarily get a lot of outreach from bike groups. And there are different there are a variety of different subsections of residents in Fitchburg and in the broader area who bike for different reasons, who bike at different times and in different places. And I do, at least personally, I'm trying to make sure that I'm keeping that complexity and that diversity in mind when I'm thinking about these. I don't know, as we're talking about bike counters and getting increased data on who's riding, I don't know that there are any more logical places than what we're discussing to put up bike counters, but it's just something I'm trying to keep in mind. I think would be good for us to not forget about.
So Angie had her hand up, and then we've got 15 minutes left to cover two very more important topics. So I think, Angie, would you raise your point, and then we're going to move on?
Well, I just wanted to make the point that the trails are wonderful, but also remember the roadways, that people are riding on roads. I mean, I quite frankly don't ride on a trail till I hit the military ridge outside of Verona. So, I think there's a lot of other people like me too.
Mhm.
I am excited that they're looking to possibly pave the shoulders on Lacey, because that would actually mean that we would have a road going that direction further out than the actual shoulders, maybe. I won't really believe it till I see it, but.
Okay, thank you, Angie. So Phil, why don't we work with that small work group to get a conference call scheduled with Mary and Steve, and follow up? Steve will get the data that he has. And I apologize that Marion sent me a 90-page document. I just got what I got from Canada. So at any rate, let's sooner rather than better. So if we can get it done before the end of the year, let's try it.
Yep. I think it was a 30-page document. I tried to add 3 different things as an attachment, and somehow it just copied that one over 3 times. So my apologies to everyone for how many times you had to see that. That's just I was using the agenda.
So let's move into bike registration, and I think referencing first the email. We talked about bike index. We talked about the police at the previous meeting as Ned came. And Steve sent an email last night. I don't know how it got shared, but actually I think it makes some sense. So I'm going to turn it over to the two of you guys to speak to this and then move forward.
Sure. So just a quick recap of where the discussion was last meeting. I assume everyone remembers, but just in case, Fitchburg currently has a bike registration mandate that's on the books. It's not particularly enforced by the police. We had Officer Ned Hartwick came and spoke to us. He said he doesn't know the last time they've actually given a ticket for a bike not being registered. They mostly use it to help track down lost and missing stolen bikes and try to return them to owners. But that success rate in most cities, and I think Fitchburg is no exception, is not particularly high. That, lost bikes between them either not being registered or somebody reports a bike that was stolen and they can't find it, maybe 5% end up actually getting returned. However, the bike registration mandate, that ordinance, we currently charge $5 for bike registration, and that mainly goes to cover the cost of the sticker that goes onto your bike and a small amount of police time spent keeping the registrations updated and that spreadsheet up to date. It's not necessarily it's not something that is being used as universally in Fitchburg as it probably should. And there are concerns from the Bike League as we're going through this bike-friendly community process. There are concerns that a bike registration mandate can be a barrier to people getting their bikes getting them just tracked anywhere, and especially that could be a hurdle to people riding then if they feel that they may face fines or tickets for not paying that registration fee. So one of the options that we had looked at was bike index. That's something that Madison has been discussing. They're looking at getting rid of their bike registration ordinance. Right now they charge, it's either $10 or $15 for a 3-year registration, and that, go ahead, Steve. Yeah.
Just 4 years.
4 years. Okay. 4 years. But yeah, so it's not a tremendous amount of money, but it does cost. They bring in around, my understanding is they bring in about $20,000 a year from bike registrations, but the cost of maintaining it and the part-time position to manage their database is around $40,000. So they're losing money on this, and they're looking at other options to kind of manage this process of tracking bikes and returning them to owners that maybe is a little bit more financially feasible. And I think, Steve, this would probably be a good place for you to cut in, because you've that email you sent, you've done a bit of research here already.
Yeah, I sent that to Mark and to Chad Brecklin, the chief, and to the Bike Fitchburg board. I'll summarize it here. So Milwaukee uses the top level of the Bike Index program. They use it as their municipal registration program. They have gotten away from, so automobile drivers, reminds me of the share the road sign, but automobile drivers think of bicycle licensing completely differently than we do. They say, well, they should pay their fair share, so why don't we license bicycles? But that's not the reason. Bicycles cause negligible damage to the infrastructure, no matter how many there are, compared to cars and especially heavy trucks, which wear it out. Milwaukee has reoriented to strictly a bike recovery program. They have public service announcements and web pages and so on that basically say, register your bike so we can help you get it back if you lose it. And you can see that under what we do on the Bike Fed website. They talk about the Milwaukee program. So one of the things that the high-end thing lets you do is if somebody registers a bike as stolen, because you can register, somebody just stole my bike and you can register at that point and people can help find it for you. But if somebody finds a bike that's in Bike Index and turns it in, or the police find an abandoned bike, they cannot contact the owner. They have to contact Bike Index, and Bike Index has to contact the owner. And if you sign up for one of these municipal programs, that gives law enforcement the ability to contact the bike owner directly without involving Bike Index and worrying about a lot of things. So I've proposed in this message that that Fitchburg immediately signs up for the free tier, which gives 5 community logins. That would our staff logins. That would cover the 4 records clerks and a detective. And that they budget for next year, 2021, and this would be a budget amendment or out of operational funds that are already in the budget, the $500 a year program, which would allow them to do bulk entry in 2021 of the legacy licenses. And they would also pilot that program to decide whether they wanted to continue the $500 level into the future. I don't see us, using the $8,000 a year level. But maybe, and we could evaluate that, once the city is starting to use it. I've offered to personally provide business process re-engineering for the registration system, migrating it from the current system to the Bike Index. I would work with the records clerks on that with the go-ahead from the chief. And in the meantime, I have signed up for a community organization account for Bike Fitchburg, and I've sent it to the board members, so that means that Tony would have received it. So you can sign up for Bike Index through Bike Fitchburg and start to add your bikes. What that does is it gives the organization visibility into bikes registered by those people. They don't have to be, quote, members. It's similar to bike shops. Bike shops can do this for their customers. So Fitchburg, Bike Fitchburg has already signed up. I recommend that Fitchburg PD sign up for free for this year. That is the end of 2020. And for $500 for 2021, we could certainly raise that money if the money is the problem. And I've also ordered some of the stickers to see what they are like, that the police would buy in bulk and issue to people who registered, that says registered at Bike Index, and they have sequential numbers. And I've also offered to do a trifold brochure advertising the new registration program for the city registration, the city and police department literature racks. So I think that's everything the last point is that I don't think we need to worry about the ordinance. We can get the ordinance done just before we apply for bicycle-friendly communities next time. The main thing is to get the new registration system organized so that it's a bike recovery system instead of a help pay for the road system or and the thing that the Bike League worries about is they don't want it to be like taillights out where police are pulling people over for registrations when really what they're doing is they're racially profiling them. One of the populations that I think it was Angie or Mark was talking about that are often not seen are poor working folks who are using bikes as their primary transportation. And if you want to count those people, count them at the Fish Hatchery Beltline Bridge. You'll see tons and tons of people coming from the Burr Oaks neighborhood and farther north, sometimes on transit, down to work in the Stewart Street Industrial Park area just south of the Beltline.
Okay,
That's
we're
all I have,
running out of time here, so Steve.
I'll take questions if there are any.
Yeah, I think, Phil, I'm gonna look at you here. I'd like us to proceed with this. Do you need a motion for us to get behind what Steve said? I think this makes sense. I think we gotta get Chad and his company engaged. But this is one of the other things that was on our deficiency list. So we're almost out of time, and I apologize, but.
Yeah, I think because we didn't have an item to vote on the agenda, we can't take a vote, but I think we can just take a general sense of if the committee's on board with this. If we want to, I think if we want to try to vote on putting something before Common Council that would involve, an expenditure for bike index, I think I need to put that on the next meeting that we have. Steve, do you?
Yeah, may I propose that this is like a 30 or 40 line email. Why don't I make a more detailed proposal and draft a resolution for your next meeting?
That sounds good. Yeah, I'll put that as an action item.
Everybody, and we run it by, the resolution would probably start at the council. Phil would submit it to the council go to a council meeting. Then they would probably refer it out to public safety and to this committee, and staff like PD and Public Works would weigh in, or clerk, if the clerk is doing these kinds of things at the front desk. That would be an opportunity to move it forward.
So Joe, you had your hand up. Can you help us here with this? Joe?
You
had your hand up. Can you help us move this forward?
Yeah, I believe staff or alders can sponsor amendments. So I could sponsor it, but it could also, go through city staff as well. It's up to the will of the group. I'm fine either way, but I'll definitely advocate for it. And I'll definitely give the context that it needs on the council.
Yeah,
I agree with it. Yeah.
Thanks, Joe.
I suggested it come from the planning department, Phil's department. I would send it to Phil. Phil would massage it, get a resolution number, and it would be sponsored by the mayor. If it's not controversial, that's the best way to do it.
And then as long as that would be appropriate, I think I'd still like, I think, Joe, I'd still value your input on the resolution before we get it submitted.
Right.
But I think I agree with Steve that it would make sense coming from city staff.
I don't want to lose sight of kind of Steve's point as well as your point, which is that we really need to look at, equity and inclusion and all the things we're putting forward.
Yeah. And I'd like to see, as it goes forward, too, an education plan that pulls in that part of the city, so people who may need even help registering those bikes when we can all get back together again. So again, we got 1 minute left here, so I think we've got a plan on this. Can I see a consensus between Ellie and Angie? And I think we're all on the same page. Is that, Ellie, are you okay with this?
Yep.
Okay. So Phil and Steve, you got your marching orders, and this is a good thing that will move us to gold. Now we have 1 minute left. Do we get into the e-bikes or not, Phil?
Can we put a pause on the bike share program update, maybe add that into the next month as a little bit more robust an agenda item, and I can just give a quick update in that as part of my staff report.
Okay, so go ahead, and your staff report's up then.
So this this is going back to the spring. We had talked about that Free Bikes for Kids program. They collected 1,041 bikes. They gave away to 33 different nonprofit schools and churches. That was a pretty successful program. Their goal for 2021 is to give away 2,021 bikes. And they got a good start there with the September Bike Week as part of Cycle September. They've already started collecting for their 2021 giveaway. So that's one that, as I learn more about Free Bikes for Kids 2021 efforts, I'll give some more updates there. Several of us got a quick ride on some e-bikes around Fitchburg with a couple representatives from B-Cycle. We've been talking with a few of their staffers about the possibility of getting B-Cycle down to Fitchburg and what that's gonna take. Wade, who presented last meeting about the community hub, the neighborhood hub over on Traceway Drive. Wade and I put together an initial pilot proposal for where it might make sense to put some B-Cycle stations around Fitchburg, and we just wanted to check those out with the staff and kind of get their sense of what made sense and what didn't, and what factors we need to consider. But that's a process that we've started kicking off. I've spoken with representatives from both Spartanburg, South Carolina, and Battle Creek, Michigan, where they have B-Cycle programs, just to get some of their insights. The costs can be fairly substantial. So if we're looking at one dock with 8 to 12 stations, you might be looking anywhere from $20,000 to $35,000 for that one dock. So this is something that, again, would be a significant cost, and we'd be looking for some help from business partners around the city or some grants that we'd apply for. Certainly it's something that we want to consider equity, and that's one that I believe B-Cycle and Madison are starting to consider. They've just agreed to a new 10-year contract. I think that was just reported yesterday, that Madison and B-Cycle are extending their partnership, and they're going to look to bring some more stations farther south on Park Street, which is going to get some more stations closer to Fitchburg. And I think the more that we can, if we get a B-Cycle program, if we can really interface it well with Madison's program, I think that's going to lead to more success as well. And then the biggest thing to consider, and again, this is just all part of the next steps as we discuss this and think through what needs to be considered next, is staffing. That both Spartanburg and Battle Creek put about a 50% staffer into managing the program, and that covers everything from tracking where bikes are, to handling people registering for the program, to replacing batteries and managing the software. It's something that we could pay B-Cycle staff to handle some of that for us, but that's an additional cost. If we wanted to deal with that internally, then we would need either need some significant volunteer staffing, or we'd have to find a way to pay for it in city staff. But that's just kind of a really high level overview that we've been doing a little bit more research and trying to bring B-Cycle down and get a bike share program as part of our expanded multimodal transit offerings to the city.
Phil, the only thing I would add to that is that there are other groups around us talking to E-Cycle. That is Middleton,
right,
McFarland, and Monona. And I think that Phil gave a very good suggestion to look at a regional approach to E-Cycle. So I ran into the Trek guy over the weekend, and they're starting to think through that. So I think you and Helen need to get back together to at least get an initial plan, then share it with your work group. That's and I think we can have more discussion on this at the next meeting, because it's not an overnight thing. It is not a go or no go on goal. It's just to improve cycling in the city. And Joe's, you and Joe have both talked about equity. I think we drive equity into this thing.
And we've had several interested companies around Fitchburg that have reached out to B-Cycle. So we know there is some momentum around the city to get this moving, and that was kind of part of the impetus in my in Mark's and my trying to push on it again. Is we know we've got some commercial interest, and so we want to take advantage of that and not let the momentum pass us by.
Okay, we're 5 minutes. Thank you, Phil. We're 5 minutes over the end of the meeting. I apologize for not doing my job as chair. Is there any other announcements anything else from you, Phil, about staff report? I'm sorry.
Nope, no, that's it.
Okay. Are there any other announcements from the group? Yes, Steve?
Just wanted to thank folks for having me and make a quick announcement that a public repair station has been installed at Luna's Groceries at the gateway to the Allied neighborhood. And I am now working with Just Bikes, which the Bike Fitchburg is a member of, and the Bike Fed are working with Fitchburg Parks to install the remaining repair station from the Mad About Bikes grant at the King James Way Pocket Park to serve the Jamestown neighborhood.
Awesome.
So that is working along, and I'll make sure that Phil knows how it comes. But it'll go to the Park Commission in January, and will require the city to pour the concrete pad, but we'll get that installed, and that'll be a great neighborhood and a very good play for equity.
Thank you.
Well,
Thank you for the autograph on it, Steve.
I'm sorry, Joe, what?
Oh, I was thanking Steve for all his efforts on it. He was texting me constantly. And I appreciate the guys who put it in as well.
Thank you, Joe. Is there anything else? Anybody else have any other comments, announcements, or food for thought before we adjourn? Okay, hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. Angie's nodding her head, so I'm taking that as a motion. Do I have a second?
Second, motion.
I'll second it. I want to wish all of you a happy holiday. I will pledge to you as the chair that I will keep all of this on the top of our agenda. We'll work with our city leaders and Bike Fitchburg to keep moving this forward. But again, I think we are making progress, albeit not as fast as I'd like sometime. We're going to get there. So it is a journey. So have a good holiday, stay safe, and I'm going to call the meeting off right now. I know we didn't. Raise your hand if you're okay to adjourn. There we go. We got it on file. Thanks, everybody, and
Thanks,
we'll
everyone.
talk soon. Bye-bye.